Morning mist coils around the towering Andes, massive stones glinting silver in the weak dawn light. The cold wind carries the scent of damp earth, and the leaves whisper secrets older than memory. On the mountain slopes, figures move steadily. These are no ordinary villagers, but Inca warriors, bows on shoulders, spears in hand, stepping with a precision born of a lifetime among the rocks and streams. This is not the golden splendor of Egypt, nor the towering heights of Babylon. This is a land where humans learn to turn stone into terraces for farming, rivers into networks of trade, and treacherous mountain paths into strategic advantages. The Inca did not merely survive the harsh Andes. They transformed it into power, where every campaign and battle was a testament to intelligence, endurance, and will. In Age of Empires, the Inca are known for flexible infantry, skilled archers, and llamas carrying supplies, thriving in rugged terrain. But history is far more dramatic. Battles fought atop mist-shrouded peaks, journeys across perilous mountain trails, palace intrigues, and moments of glory interwoven with tragedy. All unfold like an epic cinematic film, each frame soaked with blood, stone, and destiny. Today, we embark on that journey. From the first steps of Manco Capac in Mama Oclo to Machu Picchu rising majestically from the fog, from earth-shaking battles to the empire's fall under Spanish invaders. A journey through towering mountains, rope bridges, fearless warriors, and mysteries that have endured for centuries. Join us and step into this adventure to witness the power, the intellect, and the fate of one of history's most extraordinary civilizations. High above the clouds, where the air grows thin and cold, the Andes rise like a spine of the world, jagged peaks carved by eons of wind and ice. Below, the Urubamba River snakes through fertile valleys, its waters glinting like molten silver under the rising sun. It was here, in these formidable heights and hidden valleys, that the story of the Inca began. A civilization that would one day stretch across thousands of kilometers of mountains, rivers, and deserts, yet whose roots were as humble as the stones beneath their feet. The early Inca lived in small, scattered communities, clinging to terraces carved into steep slopes, their hands digging into earth that seemed almost unwilling to yield crops. Every seed planted was a gamble, every harvest a triumph against nature's stubborn resistance. Life was harsh, yet the people thrived in ways that outsiders could hardly imagine. Their settlements were small, yet they contained the first hints of what would become a mighty empire. Plazas for gathering, shrines to honor the sun, and homes that blended seamlessly with the rugged landscape. According to legend, the Inca were born of divine guidance. Manco Capac, the first Sapa Inca, and Mama Oclo emerged from the sacred lake Titicaca, sent by the sun god Inti to bring order to the chaotic lands of the Andes. They wandered through valleys and passes, teaching the people how to farm, how to build, and how to organize themselves into Ayllu, the extended family units that would form the backbone of Inca society. The Ayllu was more than kinship. It was a philosophy of cooperation, a system where every person had a role, a duty, and a place in the grand design of life. In these small yet resilient communities, the seeds of a vast civilization were quietly germinating, nurtured by discipline, faith, and an intimate understanding of the mountains. Walking through these early settlements, one could feel both awe and humility. The Andes were not merely a backdrop. They were a living, breathing entity, indifferent to human struggle, yet shaping every choice the Inca made. The people moved with the rhythm of the land, their paths winding along ridges, their homes built to withstand avalanches and storms. There was a sense of smallness, of fragility, but also of courage and pride. Every meal earned, every terrace carved, every stone laid, was a testament to human will in the face of relentless nature. In a way, the mountains themselves seemed to recognize the Incas' resolve, cradling their villages and whispering ancient secrets to those who listened. Agriculture was the heartbeat of survival. The Inca did not merely plant crops. They transformed the land into a network of terraces, irrigation channels, and storage facilities that could withstand droughts, floods, and the unpredictability of mountain weather. In Age of Empires terms, one might liken this ingenuity to granaries and terrace farms, structures that maximize efficiency and sustain growth even in the harshest environments. Yet, unlike the game, the Inca faced no reset button. Every season was a test of foresight, knowledge, and cooperation. When a terrace collapsed or a flood washed away a field, the entire community felt the consequences. And yet, they rebuilt, terrace by terrace, until the mountains themselves seemed to rise in tribute to their perseverance. Religion and ritual were woven into every aspect of life. Inti, the sun god, was omnipresent, his golden light both a blessing and a reminder of human dependence on celestial favor. Offerings were made atop peaks, where the air thinned and the world below seemed distant and fragile. Ceremonies marked the planting and harvest seasons, and the Ailu came together in celebration, song, and dance. Even in the harshest winters or the shadow of looming avalanches, the people found solace and strength in these rituals. Their faith was a shield, a source of unity, and a compass guiding them through uncertainty. Yet even as life in the valleys was painstaking and precarious, it was infused with wonder. Machu Picchu, still in its earliest form, rose as a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition. Stone houses clung to ridges as if they had always belonged there. Pathways wound with breathtaking precision through terraces and plazas. For travelers arriving from distant valleys, the sight was humbling. A civilization not just surviving, but harmonizing with some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. It was a glimpse of the grandeur that the Inca would one day achieve, a prelude to the empire's expansion across mountains, forests, and deserts. The Inca's early victories were quiet victories against frost, against avalanches, against the ever-shifting rhythms of the Andes. They learned to read the land as if it were a living text, their eyes attuned to subtle changes in weather, soil, and river flow. Every terrace, every irrigation channel, every communal project was an act of both survival and foresight. In this delicate dance with nature, the Inca honed skills that would later give them the edge in warfare, diplomacy, and empire building. Even the simplest daily tasks, the planting of maize, the tending of llamas, the carving of stone, were small steps toward a civilization that would astonish the world. And yet, the calm of these early days belied the storm to come. The Inca had learned to master the mountains, but the mountains would also demand more ingenuity, more courage, and ultimately, more unity. From these modest beginnings, the foundations of a military and political machine were forming, ready to expand into the vast territories beyond the Urubamba Valley. The Ailu that once tended terraces in quiet valleys would soon be called upon to wield weapons, march through passes, and face adversaries as formidable as the peaks themselves. As the sun rises higher over the Andes, casting long shadows across terraces and river bends, the story of the Inca Empire begins to unfold in earnest. From humble origins and divine legends, they would embark on a path of conquest, innovation, and cultural brilliance. But the journey is just beginning, and the mountains still whisper warnings. The empire that rises must also learn to survive, to fight, and to endure. In the next chapter, we will follow these first warriors and settlers as they push beyond their valleys, testing their strength against neighboring tribes, forging alliances, and taking the first decisive steps toward empire. The heartbeat of the Andes is quickening, and the age of Inca conquest is about to begin. Beyond the familiar valleys of the Urubamba, the Andes stretched into endless ridges and hidden passes, each peak guarding secrets and challenges that only the boldest could conquer. The early Inca, once confined to modest settlements, now turned their gaze outward. Their vision was no longer survival alone. It was domination, unification, and the forging of a true empire in the sky. Manco Capac's successors, guided by the lessons of their ancestors and the whispers of Inti, began to consolidate power. Tribes that had long fought among themselves were approached not always with spears, but with diplomacy, and offered to join the growing Inca fold, to contribute labor, resources, and allegiance in exchange for protection and inclusion in the Yalu system. Yet the offer came with a shadow. Refusal could meet force. These peaceful conquests were calculated, methodical, and often brutal. Armies moved with precision along mountain trails, their footsteps echoing through gorges as if the Andes themselves marked the pace of expansion. The soldiers of the Inca were as disciplined as they were fearless. Infantry trained in spear and sling, moving in formations adapted to cliffs and ridges, could descend suddenly upon unsuspecting villages. They combined speed with strategy, knowing the mountains as intimately as any local. Each victory extended the empire's reach, but also weighed heavily on its leaders. Triumph brought awe and admiration from newly allied peoples. Yet the responsibility of governance, the protection of resources, and the management of distant valleys brought anxiety that often kept rulers awake long into the night. In Age of Empires, one might liken the Inca infantry to pikemen and slingers, not the heaviest troops on the battlefield, yet unmatched in their ability to maneuver through mountains and forests, to strike quickly, and to exploit the terrain. Real-world logistics mirrored this. Llamas carried provisions across passes where horses could not tread. Supply chains were maintained along carefully planned trails, supported by relay runners known as chasqui, who could deliver messages with remarkable speed and accuracy. Strategy was not only in the clash of spears, but in the invisible web of communication and movement that allowed the Inca to coordinate campaigns across hundreds of kilometers of rugged terrain. As the empire expanded, cultural assimilation became both a tool and a challenge. Tribes brought into the fold were introduced to the Inca religion, taught the art of terrace farming, and expected to contribute to monumental construction projects. Yet, beneath the veneer of unity, tensions simmered. The newly subjugated peoples were wary, and the conquerors themselves felt the burden of maintaining loyalty across such a vast, fragmented land. The initial thrill of conquest, the exhilaration of seeing one's banner raised over distant peaks, was tempered by the constant vigilance required to keep the empire intact. Every decision carried weight. One misstep could spark rebellion, undoing months of careful diplomacy and military precision. But the Inca had advantages few others could match. Their army was highly organized, their supply lines meticulously maintained, and their understanding of mountain warfare superior. Strategic positioning along ridges and passes allowed relatively small forces to hold off numerically larger enemies. Every valley, every cliff, and every river crossing was mapped, rehearsed, and exploited. Expansion was not random. It was a carefully orchestrated dance of speed, terrain, and manpower. a demonstration that the empire's strength was as much in brains as in brawn. Witnessing an Inca army moving through the mountains was awe-inspiring. Spears glinted in the sun, slings whirled with deadly precision, and llamas carried vital supplies along trails carved centuries before. Villages were approached with offers of alliance first, but the soldiers were ready for the harsh alternatives. The mountains amplified both the courage and the ruthlessness of the army. What seemed like a simple expedition was in truth a lesson in survival, leadership, and the uncompromising demands of empire building. The era of expansion marked the beginning of something larger than survival. It was the awakening of a civilization poised to dominate the Andes. Yet, with each foothold claimed and each alliance forged, the Inca leadership felt the weight of governance pressing ever harder. Every step forward was a victory shadowed by responsibility. Every peak reached offered both triumph and the reminder that the mountains, relentless and indifferent, would always demand more. As the sun sets over the extended ridges, casting long shadows that stretch across valleys yet unconquered, the Inca Empire is no longer a small community. It is a growing force, tested in diplomacy and warfare, readying for the challenges that lie ahead. The next chapter will trace the rise of iconic leaders, the development of Machu Picchu and other monumental works, and the sharpening of strategies that would make the Inca army one of the most formidable mountain powers the world has ever seen. The heartbeat of conquest quickens, and the Andes are ready to witness the empire's next leap. High above the swirling mists of the Urubamba Valley, a city clung to the ridges of the Andes like a dream frozen in stone. Machu Picchu, even in its earliest days, was not merely a settlement. It was a statement. Every stone laid with meticulous precision, every terrace carved into the mountainside, every water channel directed with an engineer's eye. It was the embodiment of human ingenuity meeting the unforgiving will of nature. The techniques employed by the Inca were breathtaking. Stones were cut to fit so perfectly that not even a blade could slip between them. Walls zigzagged along steep cliffs, absorbing the tremors of earthquakes, while plazas opened to breathtaking vistas of jagged peaks and deep valleys. Gravity and geology were not enemies. They were collaborators, bending to the vision and labor of a people who understood their mountains as intimately as they understood the patterns of the sun and stars. Water, the lifeblood of the Andes, was masterfully harnessed. Ingenious hydraulic systems carried spring water across terraces, feeding crops and fountains alike, ensuring survival through droughts and floods. Each channel was calculated, each reservoir perfectly balanced, a quiet testament to a civilization that could tame the elements while leaving them almost untouched. Visitors and neighboring tribes would gaze upon these works and wonder. How could humans wield such control over a world so vast, so wild, so relentless? The pride of the Inca in their creation was palpable. From high vantage points, warriors could survey the valley below, terraces rising like emerald steps, rivers twisting like silver threads through the fog. The city seemed alive, a pulse running through stone and earth alike. Here in the clouds, one could feel both humility and invincibility. The mountains towering above, yet the human spirit equally monumental. Machu Picchu was not only a military and administrative center. It was a symbol of unity, resilience, and brilliance, a challenge to both nature and any who might dare oppose the Inca. In cinematic terms, the scene is unforgettable. An Inca scout atop a ridge, the morning sun slicing through mist, terraces and temples revealed like an epic painting. Llamas graze quietly, the faint clink of tools echoes in hidden plazas, and below, rivers shimmer in the pale light. For invaders, for allies, For citizens, the city's design inspires awe and commands respect. The ingenuity of its construction mirrors the ingenuity of the Inca themselves. Disciplined, creative, and perfectly attuned to their environment. This mastery of architecture and engineering was more than art. It was strategy. High terraces could serve as defensive positions, winding paths could channel or slow enemy movements, and elevated vantage points allowed watchmen to see for miles in every direction. Just as their infantry excelled in maneuvering through mountainous terrain. The Inca used Machu Picchu as a natural fortress, blending utility and beauty in a way few civilizations could imagine. In Age of Empires terms, the city is more than a wonder. It is both a bastion and a testament, providing sustenance, defense, and inspiration to those who serve within it. And yet, amid all this grandeur, there was a thrill tinged with danger. To live in the clouds, to move along terraces suspended above the valley floor, required courage and skill. Every journey along a stone path was a dance with gravity, every construction a negotiation with sheer cliffs. The Inca thrived here, their ingenuity a shield, their determination a bridge between mortality and legend. Each sunrise over Machu Picchu carried with it the promise of prosperity and the reminder that the mountains, though majestic, were always formidable. For the Inca, Machu Picchu was more than a city. It was a beacon of identity, pride in their civilization, in their unmatched ability to harmonize human skill with the raw force of nature, coursed through every citizen. Visitors from afar, be they neighboring tribes or distant allies, could not help but be stunned. The city whispered a silent warning. The Inca were masters of both stone and sky, and their empire was destined to stretch beyond the mountains themselves. Yet even as the sun glinted off stone terraces and the morning mist lifted from the valleys below, the Inca knew that beauty alone would not secure their future. Machu Picchu was a jewel, but it was also a crucible. The techniques that allowed them to thrive here, the precision, the coordination, the endurance, would soon be tested in ways the mountains themselves could not predict. In conquest, in diplomacy, and in battles that would define the very fate of the empire. As the mist rolls back into the valleys, revealing peaks yet unconquered, Machu Picchu stands as both triumph and challenge. It is proof of human genius and determination, but also a reminder that the mountains, the rivers, and the skies are not passive allies. They are forces to be respected, harnessed, and understood. From this pinnacle of achievement, the Inca would launch their most ambitious campaigns yet, stretching their influence across the Andes and bringing the next era of empire into view. The next chapter will follow the rise of Pachacuti, the visionary ruler who transformed the Inca from a confederation of highland tribes into a disciplined, expansive, and formidable empire. The lessons learned in Machu Picchu, the mastery of land, resources, and human coordination, would become the foundation of an unstoppable force. The mountains have witnessed ingenuity. Now they are about to witness conquest. The sun rose over the Andes, casting golden light across the stone terraces of Machu Picchu, as though illuminating a destiny yet to be fulfilled. At the heart of this awakening stood Pachacuti, a visionary leader whose mind was as sharp as the mountains were steep. He saw not just villages and valleys, but the potential for an empire that could stretch across the spine of the Andes, binding tribes under a single vision, a single purpose. The Inca were no longer small communities. They were about to become an unstoppable force. Pachacuti's reforms reshaped the empire from the ground up. Administrative divisions, labor systems, and military organization were restructured with precision. The Amitas system, a labor draft that mobilized citizens for agriculture, construction, and military service, became the backbone of both infrastructure and conquest. Farmers could become soldiers, workers could become engineers. Every citizen had a role, every role contributed to the empire's strength. It was an orchestra of human will, each individual a note in the symphony of expansion. The army under Pachacuti was a marvel of discipline and ingenuity. Chunko warriors, clad in protective garb and trained in mountain warfare, moved with the silent precision of predators. Slingers rained stones down from ridges, their deadly arcs exploiting the terrain. While the Maida system ensured a steady stream of reinforcements and supplies, this was a force capable of both endurance and sudden, overwhelming strikes. A blend of mobility, strength, and strategy that few could resist. As the Inca advanced into neighboring territories, their presence was felt before they even arrived. The mere sight of soldiers scaling ridges, banners fluttering against the sky, sent shivers through the hearts of local tribes. Villages that resisted faced not only combat, but the psychological weight of inevitability. These were warriors who knew the land better than anyone, who moved through mountains as if the stone itself bent to their will. Fear and admiration intertwined. For the Inca were both conquerors and organizers, ruthless in battle yet capable of forging alliances that strengthened the empire. The expansion campaigns were not random skirmishes, they were strategic masterpieces. Valleys were secured, mountain passes controlled, and supply lines meticulously planned. The combination of infantry and siege tactics mirrored a balance seen in Age of Empires. The Inca infantry and slingers were the spear and shock troops, while carefully positioned siege mechanisms acted like catapults, breaking fortifications and enabling swift domination. Yet, unlike a game, the stakes were tangible, the consequences immediate, and the cost measured in human lives and the loyalty of newly integrated peoples. For Pachacuti and his generals, every battle carried exhilaration and tension. The thrill of victory pulsed through the soldiers like electricity, an intoxicating mix of pride, adrenaline, and confidence. Yet behind the triumph lay the sobering awareness of responsibility. Every conquered valley required governance, every subdued tribe demanded oversight, and every victory had to be cemented with infrastructure and ritual. The empire could expand, but it could only endure if order kept pace with ambition. From the vantage points atop the ridges, the sight was cinematic. Inca warriors advancing through mist-laden valleys, terraces and rivers glinting in the morning sun, llamas carrying supplies along stone paths, and the occasional signal fire marking positions for allies. The mountains amplified both the drama and the danger. Each ridge a stage where courage, strategy, and skill were tested. For those witnessing from afar, it was a spectacle of awe and terror, a display of power so precise and overwhelming that resistance often crumbled before a single blow was struck. Yet expansion was as much about hearts as it was about spears. Pachacuti's vision integrated diplomacy with force, incorporating tribes into the Elu network, teaching them Inca ways, and binding them to a shared faith and purpose. Each new valley conquered was both a testament to military skill and a challenge to maintain unity. The mountains could isolate, but they also connected. A network of roads, terraces, and watchtowers linking settlements into a cohesive empire. Here, in these peaks and passes, the Inca mastered both land and loyalty. The era of Pachacuti marked the true awakening of the Inca Empire. It was no longer just a civilization surviving in the mountains. It was a force reshaping the Andes, bending the land, people, and destiny to its will. Yet even as victories mounted and the empire expanded, a new horizon loomed. The challenges of governance, the threat of rebellion, and the endless march of time. The mountains demanded respect, and the empire would soon be tested in ways no peak or valley could fully prepare them for. As dusk settled over the ridges, painting valleys in shadow and gold, the stage was set. Pachacuti had forged an army, an empire, and a vision that seemed unstoppable. But every conquest planted seeds of future challenges, alliances that could fray, enemies that would learn, and mountains that still held secrets. In the next chapter, we will explore the intricate governance, culture, and logistical genius that allowed the Inca to sustain their expanding empire, ensuring that Pachacuti's legacy would endure long after the echoes of battle faded. From the peaks that pierced the clouds to the valleys shrouded in mist, the Inca Empire stretched farther than any eye could see. Under Pachacuti, conquest had brought mountains, rivers, and tribes under one banner. But victory alone was not enough. To transform a collection of highland settlements into a true empire, the Inca required more than warriors. They needed order, coordination, and a system that could unite thousands of miles of rugged terrain under a single, divine authority. At the heart of this system were the administrators and scribes, the living arteries of the empire. They were guided by quipus, knotted cords that carried numbers, messages, and records across the mountains with astonishing precision. These colorful threads encoded information about census data, tribute owed, and the flow of resources. Messages traveled on foot, relayed by Shasky, athletes of the Andes whose speed rivaled the wind. In a landscape where roads snaked along cliffs and rivers cut valleys like silver knives, this system was the empire's nervous system, connecting distant settlements to the heart of power. The management of labor, known as the mita, synchronized the empire like clockwork. Citizens rotated through farming, construction, and military service, each duty carefully recorded and balanced. No field lay fallow, no terrace unattended, no road left unrepaired. Taxes were paid not in gold alone, but in labor, crops, and textiles, each contribution woven into the tapestry of empire. The complexity was staggering, yet it functioned seamlessly, as if the mountains themselves had been persuaded to obey human design. The pride of the Inca in this system was immense, yet it carried immense weight. Governors and local leaders were charged with ensuring that quipus were accurate, tributes collected, and labor conscripted, all while maintaining the goodwill of newly integrated peoples. Every miscalculation could ripple across valleys and ridges, threatening both stability and survival. Walking through Machu Picchu or Cusco, one could feel the invisible threads of administration humming beneath the surface, a tension as palpable as the thin mountain air. The mountains held not only stone and sky, but responsibility, and every leader knew the stakes. From a cinematic perspective, the scale is breathtaking. The camera might sweep over golden terraces, glimmering irrigation channels, and busy plazas where citizens toil in rhythm, quipus in hand, shaskis dashing along narrow paths. The empire appears as a living organism, its heartbeat steady and deliberate, yet always aware of the precarious balance it must maintain. Pride mingles with tension. Each citizen's contribution is a brushstroke in a masterpiece that must endure across generations. The system's genius was in its synchronization. Unlike empires reliant solely on force or written language, the Inca achieved cohesion through a combination of faith, labor, and communication. Festivals and rituals reinforced obedience and morale, reminding citizens that the emperor's authority was both earthly and divine. Social harmony was not accidental. It was meticulously engineered, ensuring that even in remote valleys, the Ailu functioned as part of a vast, interconnected organism. Yet the psychological intensity was immense. Leaders bore the weight of the mountains and the people alike. Every quipu encoded potential success or disaster. Every relay runner carried the future in their stride, and every meta-rotation could spell either stability or unrest. The Inca understood that order was as fragile as the terraces beneath their feet, and that the beauty of their system depended upon constant vigilance, discipline, and cooperation. Pride in achievement merged with anxiety. This was the dual heartbeat of an empire. Maintaining such an intricate system also allowed the Inca to mobilize armies with incredible speed. Resources, labor, and intelligence flowed efficiently to every frontier. Infantry and slingers could be dispatched, fed, and reinforced along meticulously planned routes. In Age of Empires terms, the quipu system and mita labor were the backbone of infrastructure, analogous to automated supply lines and granary networks, enabling the Inca to sustain prolonged campaigns across mountains and valleys. But unlike a game, failure could not be reset. Every logistical error could reverberate into famine, rebellion, or defeat. As the sun sets over the Andes, casting long shadows over terraces and roads, the empire hums with life and purpose. Machu Picchu and Cusco, temples and fortresses, roads and irrigation channels, all reflect the genius and discipline of a civilization capable of harmonizing thousands of human hearts and hands across peaks and valleys. The divine administration is both a triumph and a tension, a force that elevates the Inca above mere survival while reminding them of the constant responsibility they carry. In the next chapter, the story will turn to the army and the battles that tested this system, the campaigns that extended the empire further than ever before, where strategy, logistics, and the indomitable spirit of the Inca would collide with the chaos of war. The mountains will witness not only administration, but confrontation as the heartbeat of conquest intensifies. Mist clung to the peaks of the Andes, drifting between jagged ridges like ghosts of battles past. From these heights, the Inca warriors emerged, not as a faceless horde, but as a disciplined, adaptive force, each soldier a vital thread in the intricate tapestry of empire. Spears glinted in the pale light, slings whirred with deadly precision, and archers drew their bows with the calm of men who understood the mountains as intimately as the paths beneath their feet. The Inca army was a study in balance and versatility. Infantry, disciplined and relentless, formed the backbone of every campaign, while slingers harassed enemies from above, raining stones down narrow passes with terrifying accuracy. Archers protected the flanks, their arrows finding gaps in enemy defenses. Local levies, called upon from conquered Ailu, bolstered numbers and brought intimate knowledge of terrain. Individually, no soldier could dominate an entire battlefield. But together, coordinated, they became a force as unstoppable as the mountains themselves. Strategy in the Andes demanded ingenuity. The Inca exploited the terrain to its fullest. Narrow trails and winding passes became natural choke points. Cliffs provided vantage points for reconnaissance and missile attacks. Rope bridges controlled river crossings and funneled enemy movements. Ambushes were orchestrated with precision, often unseen until the last moment. The mountains amplified their tactics, turning the very environment into an ally. Even the most seasoned adversary, confident in numbers or equipment, could be undone by the subtle mastery of landscape the Inca wielded. Cinematically, the scenes are unforgettable. Imagine the sun rising behind jagged peaks, clouds spilling into valleys below, and a squad of slingers chasing fleeing enemies along ridges so narrow that one misstep could spell death. Spears clash in terraces carved into mountainsides, arrows streak across misty skies, and rope bridges sway under the weight of marching warriors. The Andes themselves are a stage, framing heroism, danger, and the fluid choreography of combat that feels both timeless and epic. The effectiveness of Inca warfare is mirrored in Age of Empires terms. Their forces are balanced: infantry for direct engagement, slingers and archers for ranged harassment, and local levies for reconnaissance and support. Individually, no unit is overpowering, yet their combined, coordinated action creates devastating results. This synergy is their true strength, a testament to training, strategy, and the understanding that coordination often outweighs raw power in mountainous warfare. Mobility was key. Supply lines stretched along terraces, paths, and relay networks maintained by Shaski ensured troops could move, forage, and strike with astonishing speed. Llamas carried provisions through passes too treacherous for wheeled transport, while scouts relayed enemy positions to commanders waiting in elevated strongholds. Logistics, terrain mastery, and disciplined timing allowed the Inca to outmaneuver foes who may have had superior numbers or better armor. Victory brought exhilaration, but also responsibility. Each conquered village or territory had to be secured, integrated, and monitored. The same roads and passes that facilitated conquest also demanded vigilance. Ambushes, rebellions, and counterattacks were constant possibilities, requiring commanders to remain alert, calculating, and adaptable. For the warriors, pride and fear existed side by side. Pride in their prowess, fear of the mountain's treacherous embrace, and the ever-present challenge of maintaining order. Inca warfare was as much psychological as physical. Their ability to appear suddenly from misty peaks, strike decisively, and vanish as quickly as they came instilled dread in enemies. The sound of stones crashing from above, arrows whistling across cliffs, and the disciplined march of infantry along impossibly steep trails became legend, a warning that no enemy could ignore. Even the most audacious adversaries hesitated before confronting an army that seemed omnipresent, perfectly attuned to both terrain and human coordination. The mountains themselves bore witness to this artistry of war. Valleys and passes, once silent, echoed with the rhythm of disciplined feet. The hum of slings and the clash of spears. From these heights, one could see not only the chaos of battle, but the order behind it. The human ingenuity that turned natural obstacles into tactical advantages, fear into opportunity, and terrain into an extension of the empire's will. As dusk falls and the mist thickens, the Inca army withdraws, leaving only echoes and shadows across the mountains. They have demonstrated mastery over men and nature alike, yet the path ahead is far from over. The art of war is continuous, and the empire's heartbeat quickens in anticipation of larger campaigns, greater challenges, and the unyielding march of expansion. The next chapter will explore the consolidation of power and cultural unification, showing how military prowess, administration, and religion intertwined to solidify the Inca Empire's identity, and how these same forces prepared them for both triumph and the eventual trials that lay ahead. Mist curled around the jagged peaks of the Andes as llamas carried heavy bundles along narrow trails that stitched the empire together. These were no ordinary paths. They were the lifelines of the Inca, linking valleys, settlements, and fortresses in a web of commerce and communication. Along these winding roads, quipus passed from hand to hand, relaying not only numbers and labor allocations, but also the heartbeat of an empire that moved with precision intelligence, and purpose. Trade was more than exchange. It was the thread that bound the Inca together. From coca leaves to textiles, maize to precious metals, goods traversed mountain passes with a rhythm dictated by shaskis, relay runners whose speed rivaled the wind. Each step, each knot in a quipu, each call of a distant messenger carried the certainty that the empire's sustenance and stability depended on these arteries remaining strong. Failure was not an option. Pride and responsibility walked side by side along every ridge. In parallel with commerce, the Inca nurtured a culture of extraordinary sophistication. Temples, plazas, and observatories were interwoven into the fabric of cities and fortresses. Art and architecture were suffused with the sacred. Every stone placement, every pattern, every icon bore both aesthetic beauty and spiritual significance. The sun god Inti was worshipped not only in grand ceremonies, but through the very structures that rose from terraces and cliffs, reinforcing the unity of faith and civilization. Walking through the markets and plazas of Cusco or along the terraces of Machu Picchu, one could sense the pulse of civilization. Musicians played flutes and panpipes that echoed through valleys. Potters shaped clay with meticulous care, and weavers crafted textiles of unparalleled complexity. Each artistic act was also a social act, reflecting the harmony, discipline, and hierarchy that sustained the empire. Pride swelled in the hearts of citizens, a collective awareness that they were part of something monumental. Yet this pride was accompanied by pressure, the need to safeguard the roads, the caravans, and the quipas, because disruption could ripple through the empire like a storm surge. From a cinematic perspective, the Andes become a living stage. Llamas traverse suspension bridges, swaying above raging rivers. Markets bustle with colors and sounds. Terraces stretch across valleys like green ribbons woven into the mountainside. The camera might follow a shaski sprinting along a ridge, quipu in hand, wind tugging at his tunic, while below, traders haggle and priests chant prayers to Inti. The empire's lifeblood is in motion, and every step carries both beauty and tension. The efficiency of the Inca trade network mirrored their military and administrative genius. Roads and bridges allowed rapid movement of goods and troops alike. Quipas transmitted vital information, and local specialists ensured that production and supply met demand. In Age of Empires terms, the network functioned like a well-designed economic infrastructure. Granaries, trade routes, and supply lines working in harmony to fuel growth, sustain armies, and project power across mountains that seemed insurmountable to outsiders. But with great achievement came great responsibility. Every caravan and trail required protection, every quipu careful monitoring. Ambushes, landslides, or political unrest could threaten not just goods, but the stability of an entire province. Citizens understood that the empire's prosperity was delicate, reliant upon both human diligence and the favor of the gods. Pride in their civilization intertwined with vigilance, a tension that made daily life both exhilarating and precarious. Cultural cohesion was equally vital. Festivals celebrated agricultural cycles and celestial events, weaving religion into the rhythm of work, trade, and governance. Artisans, musicians, and architects reinforced social hierarchy while fostering a sense of shared identity. Knowledge, craft, and faith were inseparable. The Andes themselves seemed to breathe with the heartbeat of civilization, every valley a corridor of history, ritual, and innovation. As the sun dips behind towering peaks, shadows stretch across terraces and trails, and the llamas disappear into the mists. The empire hums with life. Trade flows, quipas encode the empire's memory, and culture thrives atop mountains that challenge both the body and the spirit. In this delicate balance of achievement and responsibility, the Inca demonstrate a mastery over both human ingenuity and natural forces. The next chapter will explore the climactic expansion campaigns and the consolidation of the Inca Empire, showing how military, administration, and culture combined to create a civilization at its zenith, and how these forces foreshadow the trials that the empire would eventually face. The Andes, once alive with the rhythm of trade, the pulse of festivals, and the disciplined march of Inca armies, now trembled under a new kind of threat. From distant oceans came men in armor that gleamed like fire in the sun, their steel swords and horse-mounted tactics unlike anything the Inca had ever faced. Francisco Pizarro and his contingent of conquistadors appeared like shadows stretching across the mountains, bringing with them not only violence, but a strange and terrifying technology. The thunder of firearms, the shock of cavalry, and the cunning of ambition sharpened by greed. The first encounters were bewildering. Inca warriors, trained to master mountains and skies, faced a form of war that defied expectation. Horses, creatures unknown in the Americas, charged with terrifying speed. Swords flashed, guns roared, and even the most disciplined formations seemed fragile against these new predators. The skies, once filled with the cries of condors and the whistle of slings, now reverberated with the shock of an alien force. Terraces, roads, and forts became stages of confusion and terror. A grim theater in which centuries of preparation met a seemingly unstoppable tide. The emotional intensity mirrored the Persian invasions of old. Much like Xerxes' armies pressing against Greek city-states, the Inca faced an existential threat. Yet unlike the plains of Persia, the Andes offered both refuge and peril. Steep cliffs could shield or betray, rivers could defend or drown, and the familiar paths of Shasky became treacherous under the watch of cavalry and gunfire. Pride and fear clashed in the hearts of Inca commanders. This was their homeland, sacred and sacredly defended. Yet the very mountains that had once guaranteed victory now amplified vulnerability. Disease, invisible yet relentless, silently ravaged communities. Smallpox and other illnesses preceded or accompanied the conquistadors, weakening resistance even before the first clash of steel. Coordination suffered as local governors struggled to maintain control, and internal rivalries further fragmented the empire. The great administrative networks of Quipus and Mita, the roads and supply lines that had once made the Inca unstoppable, now strained under pressure, showing the limits of even the most sophisticated system when confronted with chaos and contagion. From a cinematic perspective, the scenes are unforgettable. Smoke curls over terraces, arrows fly into the mist, and the ground shakes with the hooves of horses that the mountains have never seen. Inca warriors fight valiantly, their spears and slings matched against guns and armor, yet each clash highlights both heroism and vulnerability. The camera pans from high ridges where strategists shout commands to villages engulfed in panic and confusion, capturing the scale of tragedy and the poignancy of resistance against an overwhelming tide. Academically, the reasons for Inca defeat are layered. It was not a simple failure of courage or skill, but a convergence of factors. Disease decimating populations, fractured command structures, and internal dissent amplified by conquest and succession disputes. Pizarro exploited both physical and political terrain, understanding that the Inca strength, discipline, coordination, and unity could be undermined not only by weapons, but by timing, alliances, and circumstance. The collapse was as much systemic as it was military. The psychological impact was profound. For centuries, the mountains had been both sanctuary and ally. Now they were a stage of horror and loss. Survivors would remember not just the battles, but the betrayal of fortune. The suddenness with which an empire so seemingly indomitable could be torn apart. Pride, achievement, and faith met despair in the valleys and high passes, creating a narrative of courage, tragedy, and inevitability that would echo through generations. The parallels with Persian history deepen the resonance. Just as the Greeks faced an advanced, seemingly unstoppable force in Xerxes' invasion, the Inca confronted a foreign army whose technological and strategic differences turned familiarity with terrain into a mixed blessing. Geography, coordination, and bravery were not enough alone. The convergence of new weapons, disease, and political fragmentation determined the outcome. Yet the Inca legacy, their roads, quippus, terraces, and cities, remains a testament to what had been accomplished, standing defiantly even in the face of conquest. As the sun sets behind the Andes, casting long shadows over Machu Picchu and Cusco, the empire that once harmonized mountains, people, and spirit lies fractured but not forgotten. The Spanish conquest marks a turning point. Tragedy, resilience, and the fragility of human achievement intertwined. Yet even in defeat, the stories, the innovations, and the cultural genius of the Inca endure, shaping the world in ways both visible and invisible. The next chapter will explore the legacy of the Inca, how their engineering, culture, and administration continued to influence civilizations long after the conquest, and how the memory of their empire inspires both awe and reflection to this day. Dark clouds rolled over the Andes, swallowing the sun and casting valleys and terraces into shadow. The once proud walls of Cusco and Machu Picchu seemed smaller beneath the weight of impending doom. Within the imperial palaces, the echoes of celebration had vanished, replaced by frantic shouts, clanging armor, and the heavy footsteps of warriors bracing for the final onslaught. Manco Inca, the last hope of a fractured empire, stood amidst chaos, spear in hand, eyes burning with determination and despair. The fall of the Inca was not sudden. It was a drawn-out tragedy, a night of relentless pressure and heartbreak. Betrayal seeped through the cracks of the empire, as allies turned cautious or opportunistic, and foreign weapons shattered what decades of discipline had built. Spanish siege tactics, once alien and distant in legend, became terrifying reality. Lances, firearms, and cavalry pressed relentlessly, overwhelming walls, terraces, and defenders who had once relied on mountains and ingenuity to repel invaders. From a cinematic perspective, the scene is both epic and intimate. Smoke curls from burning villages, arrows and stones are loosed from crumbling terraces. And Manco Inca, though valiant, confronts an enemy whose technology and resolve surpass even his most desperate strategies. The camera would sweep over narrow passes choked with soldiers, rope bridges trembling under weight, and courtyards turned into battlegrounds. Each frame carries both awe and tragedy, illustrating the tension between human ingenuity and forces beyond control. Emotionally, the collapse is crushing. Pride, faith, and centuries of cultural achievement clash with fear, sorrow, and disbelief. Citizens watch temples defiled, quipus lost, and treasures seized. The Andes themselves, once protective and majestic, now seem indifferent, echoing the cries of a people witnessing the unraveling of everything they had built. Kitsch is absolute. An empire's glory reduced to smoldering ruins, heroes forced into desperate last stands, and knowledge and artistry threatened with erasure. In Age of Empires terms, the Inca faced a scenario reminiscent of a final, desperate siege. Their fortifications were solid, their defenders disciplined, Yet the enemy's combined arms, cavalry, ranged units, and siege engines overwhelmed even the most resilient positions. Infantry fought valiantly in choke points. Archers and slingers tried to hold elevated terraces. But each loss of a section forced the defenders to retreat, each breach tightening the noose around the empire's heart. It was the last stand of a civilization, measured not only in soldiers, but in culture, faith, and legacy. Manco Inca's struggle is emblematic of human courage in the face of impossible odds. Every decision, where to deploy troops, how to ration supplies, which villages to defend, carried the weight of entire communities. Allies and subjects alike looked to him for guidance, even as Spanish forces exploited divisions, weather, and disease. The siege was as psychological as it was physical. Hope flickered against despair, and every victory came at a cost too steep to celebrate. The empire's fall also underscores the vulnerability of even the most sophisticated systems when confronted by unforeseen circumstances. Roads, terraces, quipas, and labor networks had once sustained an empire and allowed rapid coordination across mountains. Now, these same systems strained under disarray, fragmented authority, and external pressure. Disease, betrayal, and technological disparity converged, turning strategic advantages into liabilities. The Andes that had been a fortress became a stage for collapse. Yet, even in defeat, the Inca left indelible marks on the world. The terraces, roads, and cities endured. Stories of courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice continue to echo through generations. Their last stand, like a final cinematic tableau, reminds us that glory and tragedy are intertwined, and that cultural memory persists long after swords have fallen silent. As night descends fully over the Andes, the empire lies in ruin. Its heartbeat slowed, but not entirely extinguished. Manco Inca and his followers retreat, carrying with them the stories, traditions, and pride of a civilization that had reached staggering heights. The next chapter will explore the enduring legacy of the Inca, how their engineering, culture, and spirit influenced the world long after conquest, and how the echoes of their empire continue to inspire awe and scholarship today. The morning sun rises slowly over the Andes, casting golden light on terraces carved into sheer mountainsides, and the stone walls of Machu Picchu, still standing centuries after the empire that built them has fallen. Mist drifts through ancient plazas, winding staircases, and aqueducts, as if the mountains themselves are whispering stories of a civilization that once harmonized human ingenuity with the grandeur of nature. Here, the Inca live on, not in armies or conquests, but in the enduring brilliance of their creations. Walking through the ruins, one feels the meticulous care of their builders. Stones fit together without mortar, perfectly aligned to withstand earthquakes, and channels of water flow with precision through terraces that sustained entire populations. Every structure, every pathway, every observatory is a testament to knowledge, engineering, and artistry that defied the challenges of the mountains. The ingenuity that allowed the Inca to thrive in such a harsh environment remains awe-inspiring, inspiring architects, engineers, and scholars even today. But it is not only architecture that endures. The quipu, the road systems, and the organizational genius of labor echo across time as evidence of a civilization that understood coordination, logistics, and governance in a way that continues to fascinate historians. Their culture, woven from religion, festivals, artistry, and shared labor, offers insight into human creativity, resilience, and the capacity for large-scale social harmony. The Andes, once both a challenge and an ally, still bear the footprints of their achievements. Emotionally, the experience is bittersweet. Pride swells at the evidence of extraordinary human achievement, at the triumphs carved into rock, at the harmony achieved between people and landscape. Yet there is also a sense of loss, a lingering sorrow for what was destroyed. Temples ransacked, quipuas lost, and lives extinguished in the wake of conquest. The mountains hold memory and silence together, allowing admiration and lament to coexist in a single, poignant tableau. From a cinematic perspective, the visuals are unparalleled. Aerial views reveal the sprawling terraces and winding roads that snake through misty valleys, while close-ups capture the precision of stonework and the artistry of temples. The light plays across these relics, highlighting both the scale and intimacy of Inca civilization. The camera lingers on llamas grazing along ancient trails, on the wind-teasing banners that mark sacred spaces, on the quiet resilience of ruins that have withstood centuries of nature and neglect. Every frame carries pride, nostalgia, and wonder. In Age of Empires terms, this legacy is akin to a completed tech tree or a captured wonder, a demonstration of human ingenuity, discipline, and strategic mastery that survives long after the battles have ended. Machu Picchu, the roads, and the administrative systems are not only historical artifacts, but milestones of human achievement, symbols that intellect, organization, and culture can endure far beyond the rise and fall of empires. Just as a wonder in a game represents the pinnacle of effort and vision, these remnants of the Inca Empire testify to a civilization that reached extraordinary heights despite enormous challenges. The story of the Inca is thus both a lesson and an inspiration. It reminds us that greatness is not only measured by conquest or wealth, but by the lasting imprint of knowledge, culture, and spirit. Even in the shadow of loss and destruction, the accomplishments of the Inca continue to resonate, offering a bridge across time to modern observers who marvel at their harmony with nature, their organizational brilliance, and their cultural depth. As sunlight fully illuminates the peaks and valleys, the final scene is one of reflection and reverence. The empire may have fallen in battle, but it survives in stone, in story, and in the awe it continues to inspire. Pride and regret coexist. Pride for the unmatched creativity and resilience, regret for the lives and culture lost. The Andes remain a living museum, a silent witness to the undying spirit of the Inca. And so, the series closes not with an end, but with a legacy. A civilization whose triumphs, challenges, and ingenuity continue to teach, inspire, and captivate. From the heights of Machu Picchu to the threads of Quipu and the stretches of mountain road, the Inca remind us that human intelligence and creativity can leave marks that withstand the passage of centuries, echoing through time like the distant, unyielding peaks of the Andes themselves. As the mist lifts over the Andes and the sun bathes Machu Picchu in golden light, we are reminded of the enduring spirit of the Inca. From the earliest settlements in the valleys to the sprawling terraces, roads, and temples that still inspire awe today, their legacy is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity. Every stone, every trail, every quipu tells a story of triumph, challenge, and vision. If you've enjoyed this journey through the mountains, the battles, and the wonders of the Inca Empire, make sure to hit that like button. It helps us know that you want more epic historical adventures. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter of our exploration into the greatest civilizations the world has ever seen. Join us as we continue to uncover the brilliance, the strategy, and the unforgettable stories of humanity's past. The Andes may be silent today, but through these stories, the Inca live on. And so does our adventure together. Like, subscribe, and let's continue this journey into history.